But let's get started on about the flags. Anybody in here heard the term trooping the colors?
Yeah. I've heard.
Have you heard it? Anybody else in here know what it is? What was it?
Pretty much the christening ceremony, but that they would give the flags to the troops and have them get a feel of the flag and get to recognize the flag.
That's part of it. Back in the days when the armies flew flags, which modern armies don't do now, probably the last time the United States Army used a flag was probably Spanish-American War, as far as having troops actually carry a flag on the battlefield. Trooping the colors was they would line the shoulders so that every soldier, they would bring everybody to order, and they would parade the colors from their regiment and their battle colors in front of them, so that everybody recognized the flag, so that when they were on the field of battle, they knew where their flag was at, whether the flag was being forwarded or retreating, and their commanders knew where the soldiers were, and so on and so forth. So flags were a very important thing, and so every day the troops were lined up, and every day they would show them the colors. And they still do this in England, and it's done on the Queen's birthday. It's a tradition. They troop the colors on the Queen's birthday at Westminster Abbey. Kind of an interesting point, something that I found out during my investigations on all these things. So let's start with, okay, I'm just going to read this off because I can't remember every single date and everything. The 6 southern states of South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and Florida met February 4th, 1861 in convention at Montgomery, Alabama, which is where the first Confederate White House was at, and established the Confederate States of America. They were soon joined by Texas, and after the firing on Fort Sumter on April 12th, they were joined by Tennessee, North Carolina, Arkansas, and Virginia. Missouri and Kentucky were prevented from seceding by the presence of federal troops, but both states were unofficial representatives to the Confederate Congress. Both supplied troops to the Confederate Army. The 11 seceding states, plus Missouri and Kentucky, are represented in this constellation of 13 stars in the Confederate flag. The other 2 slave states, Maryland and Delaware, did not secede. Okay, so the first flags that we have are, no, those are not the ones, oh yeah, under that, I'm sorry. Our first national flags, I have to do this every time to get them all back in order. We actually had 4 different this is the first national flag we had with 7 stars. We had a second national flag with 9 stars, which I don't have one of those because I haven't been able to find one yet for some reason or another. We had a third national flag with 11 stars, and we had 2 versions of that. This is 11-star version. And then there is a different 11-star version in the national flag with 10 stars in the round and 1 large star in the center. Then we have the last national version of the first national flag, which is a 13-star. Now this is what we had this is the flags that we had before the Battle of Manassas. So you can put those down. All right. So during the Battle of Manassas, we won, which we won. There was a lot of confusion on the battlefield. And as a result of that confusion was partly because of this flag. And all the dust and commotion of the day, the smoke and people were running around, that flag at a distance looked a whole lot like the Stars and Stripes. And for the Union, that flag at a distance looked to them like a whole lot of Stars and Stripes. So it was a big mess. So General P.T. Beauregard got very upset about this because it caused the confusion on the battlefield, and he went to the Confederate Congress and he said, we need something different. We need something that's going to be unmistakable. So as a result of that, we got the Southern Cross. Now this is the style that Northern Virginia used and a lot of the other troops used. There's also a Southern Cross. You'll have to excuse me the way I'm going. That's not it. Okay, here we go. There's this, which is this way. I'll hold that and I'll take this. Okay, just lay that other one over. And we're going to talk more about these Southern Cross flags. There's this style. Now,
we see how long my arms are.
Okay. This is actually a 4x6 flag. It's a large, it was considered by a lot at first to be the Navy Jack. And that's what most people, the 3x5 that you see is really called a Navy Jack. But because there were companies, different companies making the flags for the Army of Northern Virginia used the flag with the white border around it. There were companies in South Carolina that were making these flags, and they got issued to units, some of the South Carolina units, also to the Trans-Mississippi area got some of these, and Tennessee troops and all were carrying these large rectangular battle flags. So they weren't specifically designated to the Navy. So then let's go back now to talking about the flags of the Army of Northern Virginia. I have found out, we had a little discrepancy one day. We were talking, we have a little session of trivia at our camp, and it came up about what was the size of the battle flag for Northern Virginia. Well, some said it was 48 by 48, and some of us said it was 52 by 52. And there's actually 3 different sizes. There is a battle flag, a large battle flag, so that it can be seen by the troops on the ground. That's the 48 by 48, but there is also a 52 by 52 because during my research, I actually came across where they had flags made 52 inches by 52 inches and 48 by 48. Artillery versions, most artillery was elevated. So they would put the flag on the staff. It was smaller. It was generally 38 by 38, and it would be on the staff on a hill near the artillery. So it didn't need to be as big as the battle flag on the ground because it could be seen on the hill. The last Northern Virginia flag was a 32 by 32, which the cavalry carried. And obviously, a soldier riding out holding that flag on a pole could not be holding a 52 inch by 52 inch flag because it about drag him off the horse. So his flag was generally 32 by 32. So they were there. There's 3 different sizes in those. This one would be the artillery. And that one he's got there would have been the cavalry, and then of course the larger one would have been the larger one would have been 48 before that. This is I've got the different size. Let's see. I'm sorry. This one is the artillery. I'm sorry, I'm getting turned around here. Hold on just a minute, Greg.
Okay.
This flag here is infantry. That's the 48 by 48, and that one you got in your hand there, and if you'll hold it up, you'll see the difference. That's the 52 by 52. They're both large flags. Both can be seen on the staff, but they are two different sizes. And my research shows me that the different companies that made the flags actually didn't really adhere exactly to the measurements that the Confederate government gave them to make the flags. So that's it. So the national flags that we first looked at, the reason they were designed like they were was there was still some sympathy within the people that were forming the Confederate government. They didn't want to change the flag dramatically. So that's the reason you got the stars and bars as opposed to the stars and stripes. But later on in the war, going into about 1863, there were those in the Confederate government who didn't want the national flag to even look like the stars and stripes. They wanted it to be different. So they came up with what they called the second national flag. And it's this flag here. No, wrong one. My fault.
I got it.
You got it. There you go. Turn it that way, it'll be fine. This flag is called the stainless banner. Of course, this is a 3 by 5 and doesn't really represent how large that flag really was meant to be, but it was called the stainless banner. And again, we ran into a problem. When the Navy ships were flying this flag, if it happened to be no wind and it was limp on the pole, or if it was out in the field with troops and it laid limp, it looked like to some to be a flag of surrender because of all the white in it. So they came up and said, well, we need to change that. But I will tell you this, a little interesting note. When this flag was introduced, one of the very first things it was used for was to drape the coffin of Jackson. So that was one of the very first uses for the stainless banner flag. So to solve this problem that the military was complaining about, it looking more like a surrender flag when it wasn't waving, they came up with the third national flag, which was this flag, same flag, but they put a red tail on it so that you couldn't mistake it for a surrender flag. This flag only survived about 65 days before the end of the war. It came into existence, so it didn't have much longevity as far as use in the war. So that's the national flags and the Confederate battle flag. I will pass on to you a little bit before we get off of the Confederate battle flag. Let me see here. There's a couple of interesting notes about the Confederate battle flag that comes into the 20th century. And I'll read this to you because I found it very interesting when I was doing my research. Let's see, let me go down here. Okay, here's what I want. During World War II, some U.S. military units with Southern nicknames or made up largely of Southerners made the flag their unofficial emblem. The USS Columbia CL-56 flew a Confederate Navy ensign as a battle flag throughout combat in the South Pacific in World War II. This was done in honor of the ship's namesake, the capital city of South Carolina, Columbia. The first state to secede from the Union, some soldiers carried Confederate flags into battle. After the Battle of Okinawa, a Confederate flag was raised over the Shuri Castle. Any of you know about Okinawa? The Japanese were pretty sure they were going to lose, and the only thing that they had for their defense really was they were going to make the Americans bleed so much that they hoped they would quit. Of course, they didn't. So they had lines of defense set up. So they fought their first line, they'd fall back to their second. And the third line was called the Shuri line. And at the Shuri line was a place called Shuri Castle, and eventually it fell. But here's the interesting part of this. After the Battle of Okinawa, a Confederate flag was raised over Shuri Castle by a Marine from a self-styled rebel company, Company A of the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. It was visible for miles and was taken down after 3 days on the orders of General Simon B. Buckner, Jr. You know who he was? He was the son of Confederate General Simon Buckner, and he made it. So it has, and I've run across pictures during my research, I've run across pictures that during the 50s, a lot of Army units in the South would fly their Army flag, of course the flag of the United States, their unit flag, and also carried a 4th flag on the staff was a Confederate battle flag. I found that very interesting. Of course, you wouldn't see that today. They'd have an apoplexy and all. So that's the part that ends about the national flags and the Confederate battle flag. Now the next part we want to talk to you about is unit flags. And unit flags, I have several. And we'll start out with, I'll start out with a Texas flag since I like Texas a lot. Just feed it out through there. And this flag right here, yeah, well, we're gonna, yeah. All right, wait a minute. Keep going, let's see, keep going. Okay, we'll stretch them out this way. I'm gonna do it like that. Okay, this first one is Texas flag. Now, a lot of your unit flags were based either on the state flags or based on the national flags, and obviously you see that this is based on national flags. And this pretty well speaks for itself. Texas Volunteers, 20th Regiment. And that's based on the national flag. This flag right here I find very interesting. Anybody got any idea what flag this would be?
I believe I would say it had to be a concept for a second national.
No, it's
It
not.
looked like something.
It does.
Blockade runner.
Blockade runner. This is blockade runner flag. This is flag that Confederate government blockade runners would have flown. A lot of blockade runners, or a large amount of the blockade runners that we had, they were privateers. Now, they might fly the Confederate flag, but most of them flew a flag from a different nation so that they wouldn't be under scrutiny of the Union ships. But Confederate government blockade runners flew this flag. Ships like the Shenandoah, yeah. Now, this is 34th North Carolina. And this is an interesting flag, and I'll bring this point up to you. A lot of people, or a lot of the men in the Civil War, soldiers and officers, were very religious people. They were very religious, and you'll see this again on another flag. But I'll tell you what these stars represent. This is the Ark of the Covenant. These four here are angels, and this star represents God looking over. Interesting flag. I just got it not too long ago. But that's 34th North Carolina. Unfortunately, it's not the exact size of the original, but it's close. Actually, when I put the order in for that flag, I had to wait a month and a half to get it, because they make them as they get orders for them, not before. Okay. This flag, of course, everybody recognizes this. This is North Carolina state flag. Do you know what's unusual about this North Carolina state flag? We didn't have a state flag until this flag was designed. And we'll talk more about the North Carolina state flag, about the one we've got now, when I get to that part of it. A lot of our units carried this, and a lot of other units carried their own state flags. Virginia carried theirs, South Carolina carried theirs, but a lot of them would embellish it with battle honors or their regiment numbers or whatever, and some just carried the straight North Carolina state flag. They were allowed to carry 2 flags per regiment. One was the main battle flag, and the other was maybe their regimental flag, and then they might have a flag like the Forsyth Rifles flag. Most of the time, some of them carried into the battle. Yadkin Grey Eagles didn't carry their flag into battle. It was stayed in camp. They used a different flag. They used a Northern Virginia flag for the 28th, which was a battle flag. Okay. This is a Van Dorn flag. And the reason this flag, if you'll notice, you'll count, there's 13 stars to the flag. And this moon is typical of what you see on the South Carolina flag or down around Louisiana and all. General Van Dorn, he wanted something different. He's still representing the 13 Confederate States, or the representative of the 13 Confederate States, but he wanted something that would be totally recognizable on the battlefield. So this was their unit flag. They call it the Van Dorn flag. Got the crescent moon with 13 stars, and of course you can see it's very, very colorful. You ought to know what this one is.
Georgia's secession flag, yeah.
Georgia's secession flag, exactly. Just a white field with a red star on it. That's the Georgia secession flag. Again, some Georgia units probably carried it, embellished it with different things on it. Just whatever they wanted to do, apparently. Of course, I guess they got permission. This one is an interesting flag, and I got a little bit of information about it, and I'll have to uncover it. This is called the 4th Kentucky Orphan Brigade flag. And again, you can see the religious fervor in the fact of they've got the Roman cross on it, but it's got 13 stars on it. It's got the blue field on it. So a lot of these guys were religious. Let's see, I got a little something on that. Thank you. Put that right there. Hold on just a minute, Greg. I got something. I got so much stuff in here. Well, here we go. The Orphan Brigade was the nickname of the 1st Kentucky Brigade, a group of military units recruited from the Commonwealth of Kentucky to fight for the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War. The brigade was the largest Confederate unit to be recruited from Kentucky. During the war, Kentucky during the war. Its original commander was Major General John C. Breckinridge, former Vice President of the United States and candidate for president, who was enormously popular with Kentuckians. So that's about that one. Pull this out here. I hope y'all are not bored to death. This happens to be Louisiana secession flag. That's about, again, probably units of Louisiana carried some of those flags as well. Very colorful flag. This is the Hardee battle flag. Again, General Hardee wanted something that would show up and be different. Well, he got it. His wife actually came up with the idea of this flag, and it was said that she didn't have very much imagination. It's also got an Irish background to it. It was used by the Irish during their rebellion against England, and it's called the full moon flag as well. But I've seen historical pictures of it with Shiloh written across the center of the moon, and it embellished with a lot of other battle honors, different groups that carried it. But a lot of groups carried the Hardee battle flag.
If I'm not mistaken, they also made it somewhat like the Army of Northern Virginia flag. There were square and rectangular versions.
Was, exactly. There was a square and rectangular versions of that flag. There sure was. This is another Kentucky flag, and it is, I have to write on what that, 5th Kentucky.
Got the cross on there.
Yeah. Again, you see the Roman style cross, 13 stars, and it's based on the first national flag design. And it was carried by the 15th Kentucky. And they, like all the others, would have embellished it with battle honors and so forth. And this flag is one of my favorites because he's one of my favorite characters in people in the Civil War. Anybody know who this belongs to?
No.
Who said that? Correct. Nathan Bedford Forrest headquarters flag. His flag was different because he left out the center star on it. Of course, it's based on the battle flag. You know what this is as well, don't you? That's right. This is the Choctaw flag. We had 2 major Indian tribes that fought with the Confederate government, and one was the Choctaws and the other was the Cherokees. This flag, they liked the Bonnie Blue flag design, so what they did was they took the star out of it and they used the white, and they wanted the red for the red, white, and blue, and it's embellished with their weapons that they use, I forget how to say that.
Battle implements.
Well, it was their, it was the weapons that they had, the Indian tribes used. Their, just went out of my head. Anyway, that's what they embellished theirs with.
Looks like a bow.
The native weapons.
Arrows.
The native weapons. It is a bow, a tomahawk, and a bow and arrow. They embellished it with the native weapons. That's what it was. This is the obviously you can see that that's Cherokee Braves. And of course this is on the design of the First National. Anybody know what the 5 stars in here besides you?
The five Indian nations.
Civilized tribes.
5 civilized tribes, exactly. That civilized is very important. That's 5 civilized tribes, exactly.
On some of those flags, the red flag, And I didn't know this until I did some research, because my wife actually has an ancestor, a full-blood Cherokee ancestor, actually fought with the Cherokee.
Really? Wow.
That yellow, that middle red star right in the center, some of the flags, it's white, and some of them are yellow as well as red, like on your flag. I found that out too.
This is for you. You're a Georgia boy. Who's this?
That's the Georgia Irish,
All right, 24th Georgia Volunteers, Irish.
yeah, it was Cobb's boys.
Of course, it's based again on the first national flag design.
And those of you that were here for my talk about the Angel of the Wheat Field, that was the 24th Georgia.
This is a variant. The colors have been reversed on it. And this is actually a Louisiana, Arkansas battle flag variant, what they call it. Different units carried it. It's just a change so that they would recognize their flag in the field better. But different units throughout Arkansas and Louisiana use this flag as well. This is Pope's, let me read that. Okay. This is Pope Corps Battle Flag, Army of Tennessee, 1st Corps. And again, you notice that he's got the 13 stars, but he's got the Roman style cross on it, which again points to the,
I got this upside down.
well, it's upside down, but you got the general idea.
The stars didn't look right. There we go.
I found out reading a little interesting note when they, in 1976, when they did the states' flags from stamps, that the Tennessee flag was actually upside down when they printed it and they didn't know it. And I think everybody pretty well turned it. There you go. That's the Bonnie Blue flag. Actually now, the Bonnie Blue flag is a really interesting flag because it's been around since about 1810 and used in different campaigns to fight for the people's freedom. And it came back. It's one of the flags that flew down at Charleston when they were bombarding Fort Sumter. And it was used also in North Carolina. And several different units used the Bonnie Blue flag. And of course, there's a song written to it as well. Now this is a variant, another one of my favorites. This says Texas, Seven Pines and Gaines Farm, and this has got the battle honors on it, but this is Texas Hood's Brigade flag. And of course it's based on the state flag, the Texas state flag.
There's a little bit of a good interesting story behind that flag and why it's so popular. During the Battle of Sharpsburg, that flag was actually captured in the cornfields, and when they went to Gettysburg, they received a new flag, and that flag actually had a black trim around it to honor the flag and those who lost their lives on that cornfield.
I didn't know that.
I forget which Texas unit it was at Antietam, but they lost like 80% of their numbers or something. It was really bad. It may have been these guys.
Now this flag right here is a Texas flag by 1836. It's, and this is the flag that Texas had used before their regular state flag that they have now. And this flag had already gone out of existence, This flag was being used before they were admitted to the Union in 1845. So they were using this flag, and of course, as you see, it's a bonnet blue flag, and they just filled in the letters around it. But this flag was resurrected during the Civil War, and some of the Texas units carried it. And this is very obviously, don't have to explain much about this one. Terry's Texas Rangers. There's actually two different variations of this flag. I don't have the other one, but this is one of the variations that the Terry Texas Rangers had. And you can see that they reversed the star, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have been able to get Texas in the top of it there. I think this is a Mississippi. It is. This again is a variation on the National, First Nationals, and this is the 21st Mississippi Infantry. And I don't know what I haven't been able to find out what the star pattern represents. I'm still researching, trying to find out what the star pattern represents. I'm sure it represents something, because it's obviously not in the circular. It may be something similar to the 34th North Carolina.
Well, if you look at if you take a good look at the stars, you notice that they're not all upright. They are
Right.
at a tilt, and they are in somewhat in a form of a star with 5 separate points. And a lot of people don't know that if a star on a flag is tilted, that it has a different meaning than a star that is straight up. A lot of it meaning state sovereignty or sovereignty rather than just that part of the Union.
Yeah. I still have to find out what those mean. Most everybody will recognize this flag.
Lee's headquarters.
Lee's headquarters flag. Anybody know what the star pattern means? Ark of the Covenant, exactly. There's what I was telling you, the Ark of the Covenant. It's also called the Bread of Life flag, and Lee's wife designed this flag for him. I read up on it, and they called it also the Bread of Life flag. I don't quite understand exactly why, but anyway. South Carolina Sovereignty flag. This is the flag that South Carolina was flying until they joined the Confederacy. Some of the units carried this and as well during the war. But this was when South Carolina, being the first state to secede, this is the flag that they flew over their Capitol building until they joined up with the Confederacy and changed over to the stars and bars. And this is a South Carolina secession flag, and it's actually a Gideon. It's using the crescent moon with the star, and it's the Gideon design with, it's got the swallowtail on it. There you go. Which is kind of unusual. I don't know, probably some units carried that as well. And we're getting down to the last ones, last two of these. This is called the South Carolina Big Red, another flag designed during the time of secession. It's also called the Citadel flag. This is the flag that was designed and flew over the Citadel during that time, during the Civil War. And again, of course, the crescent moon and the palm tree with the red background. The current flag that South Carolina has the blue background. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I don't have a full-size one of that, I'm sorry.
My understanding, when you have the crescent turned away from the center, it's for being sovereignty or.
Yeah, because the crescent's turned away from the, well, the crescent's turned away from the state flag they have now. State flag they have now.
You know what the crescent actually is?
All I've been able to find out about the crescent was Moultrie was the one that designed the flag. He was asked to design a flag, and the final version of the South Carolina flag was not done until 1861. And actually, this was the final version.
Right.
And that is still the state flag today.
Right. That's not actually a moon.
He said that he got what I read, the Moultrie said that he would see the South Carolina troops, and from that area, they wore a crescent badge on their hats, and that's where that came from.
It's called I think it's a Golgot, which is, I think, is a French recruitment.
Yeah, they used to hang around their neck.
To protect the throat.
Throat, okay, maybe that's,
By that point, it was like a badge of honor.
Right,
You
right.
had to earn it.
we'll talk more about that South Carolina flag in a minute, and let's see what this one was. This was, okay, this is 10th Tennessee. Oops, upside down, sorry. Sons of Erie, 10th Tennessee Infantry. Of course, there were a lot of Irish in the Confederate Army, as there were a lot of Irish in the Union Army. So there is one difference. You'll see a lot of flags that look like this that the Union carried, except you'll notice one thing. On the Union flags, this harp is down lower, and there's usually a cloud over the area above the harp. Most of the Union Irish Brigade flags had that cloud over the harp, and this one didn't. They didn't.
If I'm not mistaken, do you know the name of the major battle that they became famous in?
No, I don't.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I do know that they were, their commander had pretty much purchased all their weapons and uniforms for them, and they were actually using smoothbore style weapons in the battle that they were in, that they gained their fame in, and were actually able to repulse the Union Army using older muskets than their rivals had. I actually have the painting in my house of the battle, and I can't even think of that off the top of my head.
It was in the east?
It was in Tennessee for sure, I know that.
Oh, so it was
Okay.
in the western, sort of.
Yes.
Okay. I got one last flag here as far as the battle flags and all, and this happened to work out really good. We just had a thing a few weeks ago over in Advance for one of the 21st North Carolina deceased, and the 21st carried the first flags. They carried 3 different flags, but their first flags were the Army of Northern Virginia style, because the one they had there, they're historically correct, was that. But by 1863, units were being changed over to the stainless banner flag, the second flag. I got some information here about it. I wrote it up. I found it right interesting. I said I wrote it up. Well, I may just have to wing it. Oh, here you go. Okay, 21st Regiment North Carolina flag. The last flag that they carried.
This was a little bit bigger.
Yep. Was this. This flag was captured at Sailor's Creek in, let's see, 1865. Now this flag is a 4x6, I'm sorry, 4x6. It just so happens, as I'm doing a little bit of research on it, the original size of the flag that the 21st carried, that last flag, was 46-inch hoist, so this is just 2 inches taller, and a 71.5-inch fly, meaning the length of it. So that is pretty close to the size of flag that they would have had, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the reason, like I said, the reason they were issued this flag was they changed flags as they wore out. And so this was the one that they were issued, the last flag that the 21st was issued. And that's the one that was captured at Sailor's Creek. And also,
I think it was April 6th, so they were on their way to Appomattox.
yeah. So that's pretty much all the battle flags and unit flags I have. There are, of the states that were in the Confederacy, there are 4 or 3, to the best of my knowledge I think it's 3, that still use the same flag that they flew during the Civil War. That's South Carolina, which is still using this flag. Texas, which still uses their single star banner today. And Virginia still uses their state flag, blue field with state emblem on it. And that blue field state emblem is another flag that was designed during the time, right at the beginning of the Civil War. But there are other flags of the states, the Confederate states, have certain semblances to, so that they had remembrance of the fact that they were in the Confederacy. Let's do these right here a minute. Of course, those 3 I talked about, they had it. I don't have all these flags, but I do have some of them. Florida. Now I can do Florida and Alabama both. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's the Southern Cross. And as far as Florida was concerned, they put their state emblem in the center of it, but the white represents the purity of the cause, the way people felt about it, and the red cross represents the blood shed for that cause. So it's basically a Southern Cross, or the St. Andrew's Cross design. And like I said, this is Texas, which is still the state flag they fly today. Theirs was the same. It's upside down, sorry about that. One of my favorites, Mississippi. Interesting story about Mississippi. Let's get it right. Mississippi ran the same gamut that Georgia went through about their state flag. Only to find out that as they were researching what to do about the state flag, they realized there was nothing in the state constitution of Mississippi about the flag, or about a specific, what kind of flag they were supposed to have. So they put their flag issue to a vote, and it was voted 2-1 to keep this flag in Mississippi. It was put to a vote to the people. So
I believe that was like, what, 2002?
I think so. It's been recently. This, which you know, is the old.
That's the flag I grew up under.
Yeah, this is Georgia flag. This flag this flag was redone this flag came into existence in 1956 for Georgia. And obviously it was to commemorate their membership in the Confederacy. But as everybody knows, there was a lot of controversy about this flag, so there was a lot of issues put together about what to do about it. So they went through several different changes. And this, and I love the irony of this, this is the flag that is official for Georgia now. Anybody recognize what it is? It's the national flag. And I'll show you something else right here. Hold that a minute, Greg. Hold it. I'll pass it around. But this picture right here is a picture of Georgia state flag during the Civil War. And I'll pass it around, you can look at it, but they've got scrolls right here or something, and that's what they have right in here. Okay.
So they essentially went back to the pre-56.
They went back to it,
To the wartime flag.
to the first national wartime Confederate flag. There's something about that Southern Cross that when people see it, they just go bananas and don't realize it's the same thing.
It cost changing that flag cost the governor his job, because he refused to put it on a ballot, and in fact, he didn't even let the Congress vote on it. He did away with it in a midnight executive order. I think he signed it at 2 in the morning when nobody was in the Capitol.
This is our current North Carolina state flag, which also has roots in the Confederacy. If you take away the scroll work right here, just see the white star in the blue field, that's representative of the Bonnie Blue flag. The red bar and the white bar are representative of the red bar and white bar of the national flag. And of course the dates here for statehood, and what was it they gave the
That's the Mecklenburg.
Mecklenburg, right,
Halifax was all.
right.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Confederate general, an ex-Confederate general that came up with the design for the North Carolina flag. And if I'm not mistaken, there is somewhere in the history books a Confederate flag for North Carolina troops that looked almost exactly like that one.
There is one. I've seen pictures of it. Okay,
I think this was done in the 1870s, like mid-1870s.
Yeah,
Well, I'll say, I think the North Carolina flag, the Republic flag, I think lasted for almost 20 years. I think it
okay.
was in the 1880s it was changed.
This is one I just got, and I didn't get it in there. I just got it the other day, and this is another unit flag. And again, you can see the religious aspect of they got the blue field and with the red and all, but this actually is a Missouri battle flag.
Missouri and Kentucky seem to be a
Yes,
lot of
they
symbols there.
Yeah, they did. They did. The Alabama state flag looks exactly like that Florida flag, except it doesn't have an emblem in the center. It's just a red cross on a white field. Again, the red being the bloodshed for the cause, and the white represents the cause. Arkansas is I don't have one of Arkansas, but it's very interesting. I read the history on it. Arkansas went through a lot of designs, and the last design change is the one that you see right here in this book. And they've got, these stars represent different things. They've got the red, white, and blue colors. They kept those for the Confederacy. But this star on top, anybody got any idea what it is? They put the star on the very top. It wasn't there several years ago, and they put that one star up there, redesigned and put that one star right there. That represents when Arkansas was in the Confederate States of America. That star on top is what that's for. So I haven't got one of those yet either. Tennessee is a different. I got a Tennessee state flag here. and we got to get this right. Okay, this is the way Tennessee state flag. I've read several things about this. The 3 stars are supposed to represent the 3 main areas of Tennessee. And of course it's got the red, white, and blue. But this stripe right here, the blue stripe at the tail of it, is supposed to be reminiscent and represent the red stripe on the 3rd national flag. They used it blue instead, but that's supposed to be the red, white, and blue colors plus that instead of going to a totally different thing. But that blue stripe on the end of the Tennessee flag is supposed to be representative of that. I think that's all we got there.
You got one more under there. I don't know if you were going to use it or not.
Well, this right here is actually, this is one of those, what I was telling you, some of those flags. This is actually a cavalry flag. This flag, and I have another one at home, a full-size battle, and I have an artillery made like this. Those flags were actually made by Ruffin Flag Company, which was in business during the Civil War and made flags for and they were in Georgia.
Washington.
And I bought these a few years ago, and they were expensive then, and they're even more expensive now. When you get the quality in them, when you get the pieces that are sewn together in good quality material, they get expensive. But this is a cavalry flag. Probably they could have used. They probably would have used the ties more likely, but they actually did put grommets in flags back in those days too. So that's the reason it comes with two different ways to mount it. And that's all I have, gentlemen. Oh, I'm sorry. The most important. I am sorry. No, don't let it. Save the best for last. Yes, absolutely. I think Greg and I are about the most proud of this. Well, I can't say that. I think Tony's just, he about died to get his hands on it when we got it. Okay, let's just unravel this. Put that right there. This is a historically correct, down to the fringe of the Yadkin Grey Eagles flag that was presented to the Yadkin Grey Eagles by the women of Yadkin County right before they marched off to go to Raleigh. The original flag was made of silk. The women made the original flag from dress silk, and they presented it to the Yadkin Grey Eagles about the same time that Forsyth Rifles were getting their flag in Salem. And you'll notice, and your flag is the same way, the back side of the flag is a white field, and it has on here, it says, "We scorn the sordid lust of filth and serve our country for ourselves." And in this case right here, the word filth means booty or treasure. They weren't going to fight to get treasure or wealth or anything. They were going to fight for the freedom of their land. And it had the white background on it. And this is as close that my wife thinks that those lettering look, but it had to be, it's pretty close. We figured that part. But the rest of it, the actual size, star size, position, where the Yadkin Grey Eagles name is, and all is where it's supposed to be. And of course you can see that this particular flag is based on the national flag design too.
She made a comment about these stars. She said she couldn't imagine those ladies doing all this by hand. You know.
How many stars are there?
Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and one in the center is 13.
And she pretty much did all the,
She had to measure it out, and I heard her saying a few choice words a couple of times when it didn't come out exactly right. But, yeah, she was talking about, because the original, the ladies did all the embroidery by hand, all the lettering and everything by hand. And this right here, she really had to study this fringe, because she actually had to go, the way it's described in the book, it's got a specific type of fringe, and she actually had to go look it up to see exactly what it was that they were talking about. But this is not like the fringe you see on a lot of flags, decorative fringe. This is actually sewn material around it like that.
I don't know, is there a picture of Wilson in there with, I don't know if it's in this book or not, if there's a picture of him holding Reuben Wilson. I don't know if it's in.
It's in that book. It's
Is
in
there a
that
picture
book.
of him in there?
Yes, there is. Keep going.
Close.
One more right there.
Yeah.
Right there. I got it. Now that's,
I think this picture is in a lot of different books, but you can see Reuben Wilson after the war. He
this was,
last commanding.
this is his relative, yeah.
Was taken out.
It's in that book too, yeah.
But he's holding that same flag there after the war. I know, he was quite a character. I don't know if any of you have heard of Reuben Wilson. He's buried over there at the Salem Cemetery.
I don't even think I have fingerprints.
Do what?
I don't even think I'd have fingerprints left. I like
Well, my wife sews. When my wife was 14 years old, her mother told her if she wanted clothes on her back, she better learn to sew. Of course, see, my wife's not from here. She's from
Inward or outward? Flat inside.
I think we had it, as long as we get it where we can use the ties on it.
But he got in a fight one time when he was in Winston. He came back from Georgia after his sister.
Yeah, we may have to.
He got into a couple of brawls.
Right there.
Okay.
He was fighting. In a fight. A one-legged guy out there, fist fighting with people, I don't know, it's hard to picture. But
Okay.
they said that he wore his uniform around later in life.
Yeah, thank
In
you.
fact, they say he was buried in his uniform. I don't know if that was true or not.
Charles Bronson is. Charles Bronson is buried in his uniform.
Is it?
Yes, Farmington.
I can't tie that I'll do it in a loose.
I've heard stories of different guys like that, but supposedly this flag was, the ladies, when they handed it off to Connolly, who was the original captain of the Gray Eagles, you know, they were company B?
That's A,
Were they?
First Battalion Company A.
Well, they were Company B of the 21st, and then when they were split off to the battalion, they became Company A of the battalion. But when they sent them off, one of the ladies handed them the flag, and he told me, he said, "Then we'll bring that back, this flag unscathed." And they did, because they didn't take it into battle. They used it for ceremonial purposes only, but they brought it back pretty
Yeah.
much like you see in this picture. It's pretty much intact, like it left.
You said that's in Raleigh in the basement?
Yeah, and it's in terrible shape. They told me that they don't think it's restorable. The picture that I have, I should have brought that with me, Charles, I didn't even think.
Yeah.
But I've got a color photo that was taken of it probably about 20 years ago. And I've heard that they won't even try to unroll it now.
Yeah, it's in real bad. It's in really bad shape now.
Because it's a patchwork. So fortunately, we had an old archival picture that somebody had taken of it, and you had to buy the picture, but that's what she was able to pattern it off of. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I'd like to go down there and just beg them just to have a glimpse of the flag that they have. They have a lot of flags down there.
I have a question. A lot of the second nationals and third nationals you'll see, the corner canton will be square, and sometimes you see rectangular.
Yeah, and some of that you see like that is would have had to do with the manufacturers, because some of the manufacturers of the flags didn't adhere exactly to the standards that they were given. So they give a specific size. Yeah, this is what you're talking about right here. Some more rectangle than others.
And some were oversized.
Some were squares, some were oversized. There is, in my literature somewhere here, and I'm sorry can't put my hands on it right now.
Are you not talking about the flag?
No, talking about the canter.
The can, okay.
Yeah.
The canter.
I can actually get a little insight on that, because most of our flags were made in Richmond for the most part, but we had a lot of flags come in from England.
Yeah,
And
there were
when
flags made
would
from
make
England.
our flags, they would think of their naval jacks, so with their naval jacks, their canton were stretched out like that.
Yep.
And a great example of that.
He's right about
was,
that. There were flags from made in England.
A great example of the flag that you talk about, like where the canton is stretched out, is the flag that flew over Fort Caswell was made exactly that way, and they obtained their flag through a blockade runner.
Right. Yep. I don't know if it's, excuse me.
I saw a picture of one that you were looking for.
It's supposed to be in there and gives the some of them, it tells what the government regulation was. It should be up in here to tell
Yeah, I
what
was looking at the front where they had
There you
had
go.
some of the sizing.
See, that would have been, this one is elongated, it's 42 by 36 on
Yeah.
the third national, then go to the first national, it's the next one. See, now they don't even give a size in that.
So if they had
There you go.
those.
The second national, like you're talking about, it was 6 foot, well, no, it
That's the
was
stainless mounted.
3, 6, it was 9 foot long with a 36-inch square canton on it. And then it was 3 by, what is that, 18? So that's 3 foot 4, 54 inches on the hoist. So they came different.
108 by 54.
They came in different sizes. Some of the pictures that you see, renditions of the flag that flew over Fort Sumter was Second National, was huge, huge flag. Well, gentlemen, that's all I have on the flags. I tried to keep it short and sweet.
No way to
but-
keep that short.
No, but it's great, really enjoyable. I love anytime someone gives a presentation on the flags. There's so much knowledge and so much you can learn about them, and there's so many of them that it's hard to get
Yeah.
the information on it.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.